Okay, guys, I think probably we should start. I think we're getting people joining us, but I think let's start. So, first of all, let me welcome you to this webinar on introducing DMRV Trace, the digital measurement, reporting, and verification platform for global carbon markets. My name is Amit Thusu, and I am Senior Director at Global Carbon Council, and I would be moderating this event for today. So been told about 150 plus registrations for this event already. We have close to 70, 75 plus attendees at this point in time, but I hope many more will be able to join. So let me set the context and background for this webinar. So since 2025, last year, we had GCC second generation 2.0 regulatory system, which is up and running as of now, and integrated CORSIA phase one, also has integrated ICVCM Article 6.2, a CROA into a single standard. And in doing this, we have apart from regulatory documents that have been published, we also have accreditation and endorsements that I already stated with regard to CORSIA, Article 6.2. And in addition, we had developed a GCC digitization and strategy and vision, which is basically composed of 7 key elements. So one of those elements is GCC Projects Portal, is a workflow that allows project owners and verifiers and also GCC and other stakeholders to connect together on a single platform, allow them submission of projects and allow them credits to be issued. And then followed with GCC Transaction Registry, which S&P Global is providing support on this. We also modified this last year and also come up with another solution called as National Registry Solution, and CMI this is essentially for countries, a sovereign 6.2 platform which will allow countries to participate in Article 6.2 process. But apart from this, also on other other regimes like CORSIA, but also ICBCM. Last year, we also started another key initiative called as World Bank's Energy Access Program, an Ascent program. So this is basically launched together with World Bank, and about 22, 23 countries from Africa would participate in this, focusing on renewable energy, but also on clean cooking. So the unique feature of this program is that it speeds up the issuance because it allows real-time issuance and therefore needs programming and having a very strong DMRV component together with other functionalities, registry, as well as the energy access portal. Together with this work, we also had digitized some methodologies which allows calculation of the emission reductions in real time. So far we have developed 2 methodologies, one on renewable energy and another on clean cooking. Also connected to a lot of exchanges like voluntary VCM, RVCM of Saudi Arabia, CIX, we're in talks also with ICE and other platforms, but also have connected with Carbon Action Data Trust, Carbon Place, Carbon Focus, and we'll be working also, as announced last year in COP, we'll be working on JP Morgan's Kinesis platform that will help to tokenize credits, but also have composite tokens and bring additional upfront finance together on a single platform. So in context to our vision and our strategy, we this year launched something called a GCC Digital MRV Hub with a clear objective of building trust and transparency in carbon markets. So under this process, we had initiated one procedure called as procedure for approval of DMRV solution providers. So as you know, for initiating DMRV, we have to have equipments, we have to have measuring devices that will collect the data and transform in real time to central stations, to central servers where they can be processed, and reporting and then verification will finally occur. So there is some kind of due diligence and trust that has to happen with those equipments, where they are installed, whether they are robust enough to provide accurate measurements, and whether they would be transmitted in a way that would be secure and would really lead to achievement of our objective. So under this objective, we approved somewhat called as DMRV providers. Next Green Tech, also NGX, is the first of those. So they came up with Trace platform. Today, you will be having a brief demo about this platform, but also we have other applications from Carbon AI, which is currently under review. So this is what we have been doing for quite a bit of time, really gone ahead in terms of our DMRV agenda, and is in order to digitize this whole process in order to bring more transparency in carbon markets. So now we know the objective for this platform is to officially launch Trace, GCC's first certified digital measurement reporting and verification platform, but also to brief our stakeholders, project developers, verifiers, and to also inform them about the key elements of this DMRV enabled process. So without further delay, I would like to first introduce our speakers today. We have few representatives from GCC team, starting with Kishore Rajansa, the CE, Chief Operations Officer at the GCC. We also have Shibindu Biswas, is the director at Global Carbon Council, followed with other key members. Mohammad Al Nahi is the CEO of NGX, and there are other team members from NGX together with us in the call. So you already would have seen the agenda for today. I think the agenda is for close to a little more than an hour. So we'll start with opening remarks from the Chief Operations Officer, Kishore, and then we'll start a few presentations, on the role of DMRV, and also brief you on World Bank's Energy Access Program and DMRV, and also about the procedure for the DMRV solution provider, and would have a demo on the Trace platform, followed with question and answers. So that will be the agenda for today. I think, as I said, there'll be, so I'll invite Kishore first, and then followed with presentations, and then there will be options for asking questions. So you can use electronic hands or chat box for raising your questions, so that I get to know about those. Keep your microphones muted, please. We'll allow these presentations and video recordings, and will be shared at some point in time. But before I begin, let me first invite Kishore for the welcome and opening remarks. Kishore, please.
Thank you, Amit. So Amit already gave a good introduction to the objectives of the session today, and as a CEO, I just want to first of all, I want to welcome you all for this webinar, and really I can see a lot of response for this webinar, and I can see a lot of interest on the digitization of the carbon markets. That's a great news. I just want to talk at a high level what we are doing, why we are doing, why we are doing the digitization. And I would like to state that we are in a decentralized world as far as the compliance markets and the voluntary markets are concerned. The technologies are distributed, are of the distributed type. The application of those technologies at different geographical locations, communities at the focus of carbon markets. This all calls for a need for fully digitized solutions at the policy level and at the project level and at the program of activities level. And that is why this is our, I would say, motivation for digitization. The world is looking forward for high accuracy issuances with enhanced efficiency and reductions in the transaction cost. And the digitization serves all these purposes. So GCC has put a lot of emphasis not only on the project portal, a sophisticated project portal under GCC 2.0, but also the transaction registry, a very modern registry that you see being hosted by we are using the platform of S&P Global that we developed together through years of experience that we have earned in the carbon markets, but also a DMRV system procedures and system that we are putting in place. So we want to work with the high quality DMRV providers, and we want to make sure that the accuracy is kept at supreme level, while reduction in transaction cost is achieved and the ease of the user is achieved. So in addition to that, at the policy level, we have developed the carbon market infrastructure for operationalizing Article 6.2, and we are now working with the host countries and the buyer countries of ITMOs to be able to set up their national registries. So this common infrastructure, and we are going to have a separate webinar, by the way, on the CMI, the carbon market infrastructure that we have developed. We are already deployed it with 4 countries in Africa, but several countries that we are talking to right now, not only host country, but also buyer countries. And the idea is to, have the credible GHG standards working with the countries of the world to help them to issue high integrity ITMOs and so on and so forth. So this is a separate subject, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to inform you this initiative as well. And this CMI would ultimately connect with the, hopefully it will connect with the ASCEND program to be able to bring the high integrity energy access credits that will issue under the ASCEND program, and that can be converted to ITMOs through our CMI as well in future. So I see a lot of COMESA country participants also in this call, and feel free. I mean, this is a very interactive session, so feel free to ask your questions and raise your doubts or clarification during this. So I wish you all the best for the workshop. Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore, for providing us an update on a high-level vision about this DMRV and our initiative at GCC. So let me, before I begin the session, let me ask and request all of you to open your cameras. Let's take a quick picture before. So we have with us Anam. Are you ready with taking a picture?
Yes, sir. Allow us a moment. We'll just ask everyone to switch on the cameras. We'll just enable it from our end so that they can do.
Okay, please. Yeah. So let me request again to everyone to switch on their cameras, please. Thank you. I see many of you have already switched on your cameras. Sonam, let me know once you are finished, please.
Sure, sir. Allow me 1 minute and I should be able to fix this.
Okay. Okay. So in the meantime, let Anam come back. So the key outcomes from this workshop probably would be that you'll get an update about the DMRV in the carbon markets, but also about the World Bank's energy access program. We have already, prepared a lot of documents and related documents. They're up on our website, but also have fully prepared the energy access portal. So you'll get a full brief on this program and how you can play a role in the success of this program. And then, as I said, we'll also have a demo of the trace. It'll be a live demo, and then we'll also give you some updates about the approval process of DMRV solution provider, in case many of you are interested to become a DMRV solution provider. So,
all right, sir, we can start with the webinar.
So okay, so you're taking the picture?
Yes, sir. I'm through.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Okay, so with this, let me invite Shibindu. Shibindu will be presenting role on DMRV in current carbon markets, and also will present DMRV and energy access program in session 1. Shibindu, you have the floor, please.
Okay. I hope you all can hear me, right? I'll share my screen and just let me know when you see my screen.
I can see your screen.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So as Amit said, just raise your hand. I can't see it. Amit can let me know if there's any hands, any questions, or we take all the questions at the end of the sessions when it's over. That would be the best thing that would happen. If you're in anything that's very urgent, you can put it in your chat box and we would be more than happy to answer them. So number one, welcome to this webinar, which is purely on DMRV. So let's start with why DMRV. You know, we are well aware of it, but then why are we talking of DMRV so much of late in the carbon markets? Everyone wants transparency, everyone wants high integrity credits, everyone wants to have a view of what's happening on the ground for projects. And one of the tools that helps in enhanced monitoring of these and real-time data tracking is DMRV. That helps in doing a continuous monitoring of the project on hand that builds in stakeholder confidence that this what happens, what's happening with the projects and all. DMRV is very much now a part of even a deployment in certain sectors like NBS and all because of eventualities like reversals and all, which can be tracked using DMRV components and all. One of our prime driver as GCC to start including DMRV into our whole project pool was to improve certain aspects like issuances should be faster. It shouldn't take as long as it takes conventionally. It should reduce manual intervention so that the chances of errors are less. It should also result in delivering credits at a lower cost because the market is very cost sensitive. So we should be able to lower the cost of delivery of credits in the market. And it also helps in building confidence on data accuracy, making it more traceable, transparently displaying through visualization engine all the data, and it should be scalable across the projects. So what are we looking at? Conventionally, we had a conventional process which we have been working on all this period, which was basically a conventional way of doing at an end of pipeline audit. So after 1 year, we go, but we don't know what's happening with the project. It's a black box to us. Verifier goes on site and tries to audit and data which is already passed. What he gets are only records, which he can only do some due diligence on trends and comparisons and other stuff without knowing what has actually happened on this project. They do a sample audit because if the data size is too high, then you cannot take the whole crunch. You take some samples and bits and pieces. So there's always a room for uncertainty. It's dependent on the skill. So it also depends on the verifier's skill, how much is insight does he want to have, whether he's well adapted on data and all. It is time consuming. It takes quite a bit of time, to be able to go through this whole process. It has a high cost because the verifier is going to charge you mandate basis. If it takes high time, he's going to charge you more for the amount of mandates that he needs to put in. There can be uncertainties in timeline with respect to outcomes. There's a lack of transparency because there's a black box. You never knew what happened in this project and all. And bulk issuances resulted in oversupply. So what happens is that you do an audit at the end of the year and you land up with, say, 100,000 credits. Then you start thinking, okay, whom am I going to sell to? There was a demand which is already passed because it's not demand based, right? If there's a demand and suddenly go in and go in issuance, that's not what you're doing. What does DMRV help in this whole thing? And it helps in getting data from individual projects, and this data undergoes QA/QC process as it goes through the flow. So this requirement of doing an Excel-based verification of data is done away with, it's automated. So it also helps in reducing human intervention. So it's not skill dependent. Systems are automated so that there is no chances that something is left out. The whole bulk of 100% of the data can be put through the same filter so that you do not land up with anomalies which are there already in the system. We can have a modular approach. So, in terms of stringency, you can keep adding as many, checks and balances you want to do on the system. You can keep adding to it as and when new tools are evolved. It's much more faster because for us, we have a digital project flow already, and we can build on it, on the top of it, DMRV layer, so that the whole thing is on a digital mode, which is much faster in doing. There is traceability of data. So tomorrow, if there's some kind of a requirement that we need to trace back the credits to the data point from where it came, we can trace it back, and it's available for any stakeholder if there's a review process. And for the project owner, they can trigger a issuance when he sees the market demand. If there's a demand for a credits and he wants the credits there, he can just start and choose a PMI period and just say, I want a credits for this period. If he knows that there is this much of credit on an ongoing basis that is getting accumulated on the project. So in order to be able to deploy a DMRV system, there are certain components. There's an ecosystem that runs around DMRV. It's not one system. The one that DMRV system in itself comprises of the monitoring device, which is a field device, which measures the amount of power or CO, in the LFG project, the amount of gas flow with the components of the gas therein and all. There is a local data acquisition system because that collects the data and stores it on site before it's transmitted to the next system. So there's a local infrastructure to be able to collect the data. Then this data goes to something called a data bank. The data bank in the case of the World Bank project that we are working on is a World Bank open access data platform called Prospect or Odyssey, which collects the data, and it can also be data that's received from a central agency like the renewable energy agencies who collect the data. So this data goes into that repository. Before it goes into the repository, there is an AI or ML based data validation. So these are the checks and balances before the data is accepted into the system. Now, if you want to trigger a monitoring report, a GHG claim, it is then automatically transferred into a monitoring report, and that is then pushed to the standard for issuance of credits. What are the controls that we have when it comes to this kind of a system? This DMRV system is separately certified. So we have something called an acceptance criteria, based on which the system is certified, that this system would be able to deliver all the data points as is needed as per the methodology, would be able to has all the safeguards that the data is not tampered with, has all the safeguards that there's enough space capacity for the data to be stored and transferred. So we have to be very clear. So what we do, we keep asking, is the meter calibrated? Where is the meter? What is the serial number? What is the specification? All these get certified as a part of the DMRV certification process, so that what happens is each issuance process, we don't go back and ask the same question. Once certified, it is valid for a period of time unless there is some change that happens in the certificate. Then there is a DMRV solution provider, which is the one which traces. We have accredited the first one. So he is a solution provider. He collects the data from the field level and then stores it somewhere and does the due diligence of the data. He can also do the next part of it, of transforming the raw data into a GHG claim, which is the one which Trace does. So we also separately approve the solution provider. So we look at their system. How do they pull the data? How do they validate the data? Where do they store the data? Who has an access to the data? When can the data be changed? How does any kind of a non-conformance that happens in the system get flagged? How do we have a standard, have an eye into everything that happens into the system? So we look at all components that the solution provider provides to be able to come to the confidence that this solution provider has all the mechanisms and all the management tools to be able to deliver a credible data, which is not tampered with, and we can believe in the data that comes out. So we separately approve a solution provider. We have a layer of data validation tools, which are there on the data bank, which is spelled out in a standard. So that's already included as a part of an energy access standard. Also, what all data validations should happen. Apart from that, we as a standard have our own requirements of how a monitoring report will be made, how the data will be fed, how would a verifier look at it, how would our governance system look at it, which is a standards requirement. So we have these 4 or 5 safeguards which are there in order to ensure that this ecosystem works in the manner that we want. Now I'll quickly go to I will not go to the data points, but I will just want to show how would the whole system work. On the top, you see is the approval process of a solution provider. We have a separate session on this, so I'll not go into much on it. But the output is that this solution provider can get linked with a project. The project would have its own DMRV system, which is the measurement device and the data acquisition device. This DMRV system would be certified by an external agency. It then transfers data to this thing, which is the block called the carbon engine. When it goes, the first is the due diligence of the data. The second is basically computation of the claims of GHG with using the data which is there. So it's basically is going to work on the kilowatt hour input and can transform it into ton of CO2 equivalent using the algorithms which is already given in the methodology. So it basically does a mapping of the methodology approved, the algorithms allowed, that raw data that comes in and transfers into a claim to the standard. We sit at the bottom, which is the standard in itself. So as the project progresses, it undergoes validation, it undergoes registration. Post that, once it's executed, the PMR or the monitoring report and the claims are automatically generated by the DMRV solution. And this undergoes the next part of it. You have to, that we as GCC, not only look at GHG claims, but we also look at non-GHG claims. So there are two parts of it, right? So one part of it, which can be fully automated, is the GHG. The non-GHG can be partly automated, partly non-automated, but might need on-the-ground verification with respect to local population demands, grievances, and stuff. So there would be need of minimum amount of intervention on the ground to be able to validate them. Then we can issue the credits with respect to this and all. So say, for example, if I walk through the whole thing just for you to understand, say, for example, in the registration process, there's a user login that's there on our portal. He goes and then gets activated when we allow them to come on board. They go in and submit to us the letter of authorization, which is basically a legal document that tells us who does what in the project. Once we approve, they do the program levels documentation submission. In order to be able to submit the document, they would need inputs on the DMRV setup, which is there. What is the serial number of the meters, calibration details, how would data be going, what is the acquisition system, and all that input comes. Apart from that, one of the biggest enablers of DMRV would be a methodology, which would be able to do. Classically, the methodologies that we have at this point in time are aligned in a manner that you can do an annual issuance therein. It's not tailor-made to be able to do an issuance maybe on a 5-day basis, 7-day basis, on an ongoing basis. So we took up the task of GCC of taking those methodologies, including in it the DMRV protocol, and modifying them to be able to suit a real-time issuance of credit. So that methodology is applicable in a case of a DMRV-based system. Then obviously, once it's validated by VBB, it gets reviewed by an internal governance system and the GCC team, it is deemed to be registered. So that constitutes the first part of it, which is registration process. Let's come to the next part of it, which is the verification process. What I'm showing you is more of what is in Ascent, and this is where you can get an automated output. So once you implement the project, the tech provider would come and notify of the inclusion of this activity, saying, okay, there is a rooftop solar which has got installed. These are the details as per the inclusion criteria. We would, as GCC, do an audit of it on the fly on the portal and accept it. The moment we accept it, that data flows into the Carbon engine, allowing saying, okay, it's approved. You can start pulling data of this mitigation activity in your system. Once they pull the data, this acquisition system runs at the back end, and there is a duplication of the data on GCC. It then do a data validation and analysis of the data and transfers this whole data to the GCC database and their own database. Now the client and converts this raw data into the claims. So it's a continual job. So the client every day morning might log in and say, okay, how much of credits do I have? So based on the last day's data, he knows the amount of credits that is getting accumulated on the project. When he wants, he can trigger a PMR on a portal. Coming say, okay, I have enough amount of credit, I want that credit as a claim. He is going to trigger a compilation of PMR that comes automatically from the DMRV system. There is already a GHG conversion which has happened that would make the ER estimate. So that would make the claim of GHG. There is a non-GHG part of the whole story. So we would need some inputs on the non-GHG like environmental safeguard, social safeguard, SDG impacts. There would be a verification needed for that because this is not an automated one. It would need an approval of non-GHG claims. The moment we have an approval of both the parts, the approval of the GHG and the non-GHG part, this will come for a recommendation for issuance. Now, depending upon if it's a non-authorized credit, we can directly issue it, not an issue. If it's an authorized credit, then it would need a host country approval. That is where our carbon market infrastructure comes in. So the carbon market infrastructure is going to liaison with the country. Country is the one who decides whether to give an authorized credit, and they can give the permission to issue authorized credit. Finally, there are two more things. One is obviously what does AI and ML do in this DMRV system? There are three places where they act. Number one is that this is the one who takes care of QA/QC of data. So it helps in a pre-validated DMRV system. It traces the network and sees that whether there are encryption protocol that prevent any kind of data tampering. There are role-based access control systems in it that we know who's doing what in the system. It does these automated checks, whether there's duplication of data, it follows trends, whether it matches with the maximum output and all. Checks against past trends. How has this project been issuing in the past? Are there any deviations from there? Once the data is okay, then it comes the second part of it, which is comparison with external references. For example, we have digital twins. That is, there is a a rooftop solar or a wind project there. We know there is a trend of generation. Does it match with local weather data? Is the trend matching with the weather data? Is the digital twin being able to give me same output as in the project and activity? Comparison with other projects in the same region. If there are other projects in the same region and we have a data, can we compare? Compare it against maximum acceptability range. So we know that this machine can only given this much of output. How does it compare? Once we have the external references checked, it does another part of it, which is avoidance of double claiming. It sees where is this project located? Does this GPS location match with any other project in any other program? Is there a double claiming happening anything? Or even within our GCC, is it getting included in different programs doing a double claiming? This is automated using AI ML on the DMRV platform. So no one needs to go in and put in effort in doing it. It's automatically done on the system. Finally, the challenges, we need more methodologies with DMRV components to be able to use it. We need more service providers like TRESS, NGX to be able to help us in taking this forward. We need to have more unified data security and data validation protocols. This is a new area of work. There are many terminologies which are new and evolving over the time, so it has to be standardized across the different standards. There would be different applications of DMRV. So NBS is a different sector with different set of applications. Regular would have a different set of applications. And finally, as I said, we need to standardize across the standards. So I'll stop here on the first part of it, of how we look at DMRV, how a DMRV might help us in this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you, Shubhendu. Before I invite you for the second session, there are a few questions here. I hope in the chat box, I think there is one question which Kishore already answered. Is it mandatory but for the benefit of all of them, is it mandatory for a project to assign an accredited MRV solution provider, or is it voluntary? Kishore has already provided an answer. So would you like to add anything on the top of this?
No, it's at this point in time, we're talking of two different program types on which we are looking at DMRV. One is the World Bank Ascent program, where it's a must. The DMRV is the backbone of the delivery. There will be a DMRV solution provided therein. The second is standalone projects which are there with GCC. We are now onboarding DN1 solution providers so that it's voluntary based. Anyone wants to take the route to make their data visible to clients, to get more credibility in the market, they can.
Okay, thank you. So another one from Shashi: for a project developer, if DMRV is used and no non-GHG claims are required, then there is no need for VVV for this verification?
Yeah, so you understand that we as GCC, we have a standard requirement. If a GHG claim does not demonstrate environmental safeguard and social safeguard, we do not issue credits. So unless non-GHG claims are certified, there is no issuance that happens. It's a prerequisite that legal compliance with respect to environmental and social safeguard have to be demonstrated. When it comes to SDG impacts, it might happen that they do not have any impact. They do not have any additional attributes which we label onto the GHG claims.
Okay, I think there is another question from Shashi, follow-up question. Then what is the benefit? It is another step and cost.
Okay, so number one. So as we said, how does the whole flow? Number one is, do you want to do an end of the pipeline audit and have no visibility? You want to do a continual audit, and when there's a demand trigger. So what is the timeline that we're looking at in the Ascent program, which we're running at this point in time? From the time that you start with a GHG claim to the time that you actually get credits in your account, it should not be more than 3 to 4 days. That's the timeline that we're looking at. So that's, in order to be able to do that, you have to take out a lot of costs. Like in the Ascent program, we do not have a verifier sitting therein. We do not have a governance body like steering committee sitting therein. Everything is automated therein. So the cost of the verifier goes out. Our internal delivery cost comes down. You can do volume-based credits issuance on even maybe on a 3-day, 4-day, 5-day basis and all. So the cost of delivery comes out. That's the essence of the whole DMRV inclusion in the system.
Thank you, Shubhendu. I think there is one more interesting question. It is with regard to no feedback loop. So what happens when due diligence rejects data? when the
Yes.
carbon engine flags an anomaly, when raw data and PMR do not reconcile, no correction paths, no re-verification loop, no dispute mechanism shown. So,
Yeah.
would you like to kind of give a little bit of or little more insights on this?
Yeah. So
I know it's
let's
not possible
understand.
to
Yeah.
not possible to explain everything this short period of time, but I think these questions are really helpful.
Yeah. So yes, you're right. If there is an anomaly, if there's a data duplication, if we find that it falls below the acceptable range, it gets rejected. Why? Let's trace the path of the data. It is from a rooftop solar. It goes to a REA, a regional energy renewable energy agency of the country who deployed it. It then goes to a data source like Prospect. It then goes to Carbon Engine. Where does this anomaly get flagged? The Carbon Engine. From the Carbon Engine, this data discrepancy cannot go back to the technology provider for reconciliation because there are in between players who are sitting. You cannot route it back to them. So if the data is authentic, the data follows trends. Obviously, you can say the first issuance, you would not have any trend. You would not have reference point. That's true. But as the system goes over the period of time, you'll have references to compare with. The first issuance would not happen. You're going to only look at certain safeguards. Some of them would come over the period of time. But if it goes beyond, there's no reconciliation because it's not a one-on-one data transfer from the client to the Carbon Engine. There are several more actors who cannot reconcile the data, neither justify why does it not fall in it.
Thank you. Thank you, Shubhendu. Another two questions. I will take these two questions.
I think we should take the question towards the end of this, I think, because there are a lot of things to my suggestion. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Sure, I'll just take these two questions and then we can move on. I think it's important. These questions probably are important from the point of view of understanding. So the one from Eric, does it mean that once DMRV model is certified, then VVBs do not need to verify GHG credit?
No. What we are saying is, each time when we do a classical verification, we keep asking, what is the serial number? Who was when was it last certified? Is the certificate valid at this point in time? Where is it located? Show me the location of it. What we say is that once this whole thing is certified, you don't need to look at it again at the infrastructure which is there because it's certified, unless there's a change in it. We only look at data. Our concentration next is only at the data, unless the hardware changes. If the hardware doesn't change, there's nothing which is materially changing on the ground, apart from the fact that you upload each time your calibration gets changed and all, and the system on the fly would allow your data to flow because your calibration is valid at that point in time. But each data would be checked, each claim would be checked. We would not only raise questions on the hardware which is installed on the site, because that's certified once for all.
So I think last question from Suman. I think it's from the point of view of verifiers. What is the role of verifiers? How will the adoption of DMRV impact the role of VVBs, and what changes are expected in their functions and responsibility? I think it's a very important question to touch upon. Shubhendu.
Yeah. So what we did is that we did a round of back and forth with the verifiers or the VVBs, understanding what would you need in order to be able to work on a DMRV enabled project and all. There were some people who thought we need to know coding, we need to know how data flows, we need to know how data gets archived, what are the IC standards there. Then you don't need to do. You can do the raw of a VVB. Registration is pretty much the same as it was in the past. Only thing is that your methodology would change. It would be much more intricate on data requirements. On the issuance part, the VVB on a classical project of GCC would be the same as a verifier. You would let that data come to you in an Excel format, and you need to do a due diligence in spite of the fact there is already been happening on the fly. But in the case of Ascent, their verifier is not on a project to project basis. A verifier is entrusted and given a login onto the system that they can look at all projects, all data, and flag anomalies therein. So what will happen is the role of the verifier over the period of time in the issuance process would keep going down. When we have come to a point that with reasonable certainty that this system works, flags on anomalies, takes care of all kind of uncertainties therein, we can only concentrate the VBB's role on the first part, on the registration and the certification of the DMRV system, because that's also a job of the verifier.
Also, I think the due diligence by the verifier will get more robust, more strengthened, because then the data is coming live. When you do a normal verification, you look at the data that already has happened in the past. So it's just like a logbook checking, perhaps, and this one is real time, more certain. I think this will really help in scaling up carbon markets to bringing it to the next level. There are a few more questions. Perhaps I will take them at a later point in time. And now let me request Shubhendu to continue on the presentation on Energy Access Program. Shubhendu.
Right. Okay. Now I'll share the next one, which is Energy Access Program. Let me see where it is. Okay. We briefly touched upon this. So we are the carbon standard who's building a program, who's building a standard for the Energy Access Program, the ASIN program. What is the ASIN program? It's a deployment of distributed renewable agency energy projects and cookstove projects in 22 African countries with a DMRV backbone. So what would happen is the whole purpose is that we are supposed to touch around 100 million people with different interventions, which are there as a part of the ASIN program. So what is it that we're building as GCC? There are certain documented things which are being tailor-made for the Energy Access Program, like we have a different standard. We'll have different methodologies which are DMRV enabled. We will have a validation and a verification standard of how the VBBs would act in the case of Energy Access Program. We will have a separate sustainability standard in order to be able to understand how SDG claims are made in these projects. We have a different flow of cross program, so it's a program process there. The ones which are existing at this point in time, which is PAN and GCC, is like DMRV acceptance criteria, standards on double counting, CORSIA standard in case this is also getting approved under CORSIA, standardized baselines and tools which can be used. We also have a governance setup, that is, we have our own steering committee and regulatory committee which is going to sit with these programs, with this Energy Access Program. Validation and verification forces who are onboarded by GCC are going to also act in these projects or programs. We have DMRV certificate providers, which is given by the VV bodies. There's a registry already sitting, which is going to be issuing credits on a real-time basis. There would be national registries who would be issuing credits which are authorized credits. We also have a separate dedicated energy access portal, which would work because this is a different structure in itself. The CMI, as Kishore said, we also offering carbon market infrastructure to host countries to be able to authorize credits and keep a record of it and interface with the UN. And we have this carbon engine which is running, which is translates raw data to GHG claims. The structure is totally different from what you're accustomed to in the carbon markets. The structure is one POA, which is one country, one tech, maybe multiple methodologies, is directly mapped with interventions, or we call it MAs, or mitigation activity. The CPA layer is taken out in between to reduce complications and to reduce the amount of documentation which is required. I won't dwell on this, we have already talked of it. So the registration pathway is the one that I showed you already. It's the same. The backbone here is the EAP, the platform which is sitting in the middle with a DMRV component on the top, wherein the data flows from the plant to a prospect platform to the carbon engine. The validation requires some inputs in the form of new set of methodologies and protocols, which are inputs in order to be able to submit to GCC, and it gets registered. Again, the one which is there, which is totally different, where we don't need any verifier to be sitting on a project-to-project basis or a steering committee, is the issuance process, where all data is mapped on the fly. All raw data is at a real-time basis stored with GCC. Claims are automated on GHG claim. Non-GHG claims are separately verified by a verifier, and then it goes to issuance of authorized credits or non-authorized credits. There are two methodologies we've already published for stakeholder consultation, and maybe by the end of this week or the next week, we should be able to publish it. So one is for DRE, and the other is for clean cook stoves, clean cooking transitions. What are we trying to do? We are trying to make these methodologies as simple as possible. And with the fact that to understand this, these methodologies were never built in order to be able to do a real-time issuance. And thirdly, there are certain models which run in these countries which is not taken care of in the methodologies, which is like the proxy of having a pay-go model, where the client pays for the installation but doesn't pay for the power actually generated therein. So those new way of functioning, which is actually the reality on the ground on these countries, are built into the methodology. We would like to tell you that when the methodology is out, please go through the methodology, and if you have any input, do let us give it to us. When it comes to the cook stove, obviously we have two different pathways. One is a pathway where all the consumption data is tracked, which we say CTEC project type, and one where all consumption data are not tracked. So that's the non-CTEC type of projects. When it comes to CTEC type, the baseline is basically there are three pathways, whereas on the non-CTEC type, there is only one. And there are project KPTs and surveys and mechanisms. So please go through the CC methodology. We don't have time to deliberate on everything. Herein, what are the principles of these? The principles are we need real. I mean, these are normal that you see in the case of projects. Only which is additional is independently audited. Part of the audit is done on using a state-of-the-art automated data analysis tool. But when it comes to non-GHG claims, they are physically audited on the ground by a separate verifier. So the validator verifier is there in a limited scope in the verification, in the full scope in the validation part of it. And finally, there is also an alignment of national priorities when it comes to SDGs. So the carbon standard makes adequate safeguards to be certain that they're taken up voluntarily and delivers SDG impacts in line with the national priorities of the country in which they are sitting. The boundary, this is restricted to, at this point in time, to 20 Eastern and Southern African countries, which are covered under the ACID program. We allow any projects which are there, which are started post 1st of January 2021 with certain riders with respect to the prior consideration form. There are two types of projects that we take care of. One, projects which we say new projects, which are there, which are commissioned after the project is registered. One, which are commissioned after the submission of the prior consideration, but before the project is registered. So there are two categories. So there are two different ways that we treat it. That's why we know that we as GCC not only look at GHG claims, but also look at non-GHG claims, which are environmental safeguards, social safeguards, and SDG for the ACID program, because World Bank have their own way of treatment of environmental and social safeguard. They need a very rigorous testing, and they flag that which are moderate to high risk and which would need to be monitored over the period of time. We align with that. If they do a separate ESI study, then the outcome of that ESI study is taken into an environmental and social safeguard. That would be all a very short overview of ACID. It's very much more complicated, but then for the sake of discussion, this is all that we have.
Thank you, Shubhendu. I think I would say that let's spend a bit of more time. There are a few more questions here. Some of them very fundamental. There is one question. There's a set of questions on architectural question, more on technical stuff.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it.
Yeah.
So the fact of Rory, what we're trying to do is this part of it, which is with respect to your hashing, with respect to data integrity, with respect to the infrastructure and all, is what we assess when we approve a service provider. All these questions are assessed therein. That how do you know that it's cryptographically signed, that it's not tampered with, how is it stored and everything. This is taken care of at the service providers level, not at the program level, because this only deals with the carbon part of it, not of the hardware and integrity, which is separately audited as a part of the service provider onboarding. So you will not find them in the methodology, you will not find them in the standard documentation, because you will find them under the approval of the GMRV solution provider.
Yeah, I think this approval process is the next, but we have documents on the procedure already publicly available. So I would also encourage you to have a look at that.
Yeah.
So let me let me go to the other part of a few questions. So Tushar Chaudhary, does this DMRV model will it reduce the cost efforts of?
Yeah, we already dealt with it.
Yeah,
yes.
we just.
Yeah.
is GCC verification with DMRV means only verification of data from project implementation?
No, yeah, I mean, if you talk of validation, verification, yes, obviously, it's all about the output that comes from the project in itself. But the validation is a separate function, which is already there, which is during the registration of the program. Data, when it comes in the inclusion of the mitigation activity, that's a separate loop which runs on the program, whereas there is a GCC sitting in between in order to approve mitigation actions and compliance to the inclusion criteria. And then once included, it's only about data verification, unless it triggers a post-registration change in the form of a hardware change.
Okay, thank you. So, Prabhu from IPIC, is there any additional, so is on the competency and training requirements for the VVBs? Are there additional skills that is mandatory to be acquired by VVBs to assess DMRV? If yes, do you intend to train them on this?
Yes, we will have separate trainings for VVBs. We have now issued the VVS for EAP. We will also modify the VVS validation and verifications, standard for standalone projects with an inclusion of DMRV. Obviously, VVBs would have to have the skill of looking at data, understanding how data can be treated, looking at how to look at data analysis and tools therein. So there are a little difference, although that's the same thing. What you used to do when you take up an Excel sheet, you draw trends, understand whether there's matching or not, whether it's matching with the previous one, whether there's a data change after the end of a period. You do the same thing, but it's not done by a human being, it's done on the fly. The auditor can go in and see whether the checks are done, and each of the checks are flagged. I think when Trace showcases their platform, you'll be able to see how it is done at each of the stages.
I think last question before I move to the next session. This is from Rajiv. No, from Nadine first. Nadine is asking, is an approval required for VVBs to certify DMRV solutions? If yes, what is the reference to this process?
Okay. DMRV solution provided is a separate one. VVBs, in order to be able to audit projects with a DMRV overlay, we do not need a special qualification, but we are including it as a requirement of the VVBs. So next cycle, whenever the VVBs gets confirmed accredited to us, we will also assess their competence with respect to looking at data and how they are comfortable with these kind of new systems and procedures.
Okay, I think there's one question from the point of view of project owner, Rajiv. During verification, how can we get social and environmental safeguards will be verified in absence of the VVB?
Okay, as I said, in the case of non-GHG claim, there will be a VVB. And you need to, how do you do at this point in time? You go to the Excel sheet with the social and the environmental safeguards. You enter all the data with respect to your KPIs therein and the monitoring systems. Enter the data, give it to a verifier for check. You're going to do the same thing. It's Excel based that you do therein, and then a verifier goes on the ground to check the claims and then approve it. So VVB is there still on non-GHG claim.
Okay, thank you. I think there are a few more questions left, but I think we'll take them later, which we also have a limitation of time. And I would quickly move to session 2. Shubindu, would you be very quick on this
I'll do
session
that,
on
yes.
procedure for approval of verifiers? We already discussed to some extent, but then maybe we can be
just at the sake of clarity, I'll just run you through this one. So today's session is about Trace, the first of our DMRV solution provider, of what they have, what is their offering and all. So I'll just run you through. So anyone is interested to become GCC's DMRV solution provider, you can come on board and you can apply to GCC. There are 2 tracks. One track where you are already engaged with a project which is there with GCC. So that's track 1. Second track is where you are working on with a project which is not with GCC. It might be with any other standard, even not with a standard in itself. So that's the second track. So we classify, we give an approval based on 7 DMRV sectoral scopes, which we have classified therein, which correspond to certain GHG sectoral scopes, which are there under the GCC. You can look into the standard. The standard is published on our website. You can just look at that. If I quickly run through the process of how this gets done, there's a flow chart which will guide you. on how application would be made, what GCC is going to do, when due diligence would happen and all. I won't dwell on it. Please look into the procedure on a broad basis. You are supposed to submit GCC in an application in a template, which we haven't published as of now because we have left it open-ended for anyone to be able to apply in a manner that they want to do. You can apply for a separate sectoral scope depending on the one that I showed you. What does GCC do is that once they receive the application, they're going to review the application. We have a separate team sitting on DMRV. They're going to ask questions. What are the informations that we want are, we need information on data points that you're covering, technology that you're using, transfer protocols and management system, risk assessment and implemented controls that you have, data analytics and how you validate the data, reporting protocols and transfer protocols to GCC, confidential handling of data with respect to access to rights and authentication, information on data protocols, protection protocols, compliance with the legal and the regulatory requirements. So certain jurisdictions have special strict regulations with respect to data sharing and taking care of data. And if there are any kind of incidents that happen, how do you do incident reporting and response? Once we have this application with all these points, we do an initial review. There is a small charge in the form of an application fee. We ask the service provider to give us a live demo of the system. And then we look at compatibility with a standard, capability to provide us with tamper-proof accurate data, collect and data protocol for transfer, encryption, data backup. That's what I said. All these with respect to security and services of the provider is dealt with in this application. Capability to generate records, scalability, cost effectiveness, and conformance to legal requirements. So at the end of the day, either if you are a track 1 service provider, you directly get approved. If you are a track 2 provider, then we give a provisional approval of your as a solution provider. When you come on board and deploy your program, your solution to a GCC project, then we transfer you as a full-fledged GCC approved DMRV solution provider. So it's a little long way because you are not working on a GCC project. So the performance monitoring is there. That is, we not only once certified, it's not that you're certified forever. We do an ongoing assessment like we do it for VVB. We do spot checks. If there are complaints or gaps or errors that we see, outcome can also be putting your services on hold, suspension, or adjustment of future issuances. Some risks that we want to look at during our evaluation are we look at risks related to unclear roles and responsibility, risk with respect to weak integration of info security, risk with respect to unclear data transfer protocols or access rights or authentication protocols, risk with respect to mishandling of confidential information, non-compliance with the host country law, inadequate incident reporting, or even poor equipment or management or maintenance and disposal, inadequate backups. So these are some of the risks that we have put as an annexure to the standard. You can have a look at it to understand how we look at approval process of a service provider. So solution provider. So I would stop here and not take much of a time because the main part of demonstration is still there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Shubhendu. Now let me invite NGS team to introduce Trace Live platform. You have the floor.
Thank you very much to everyone attending and to the GCC team for this invite and for taking the carbon markets to the next level. I would like to first thank all the team that worked on this initiative. I'll start by just quickly presenting a little bit over 2 slides, and then we'll jump into the actual demo. We're a UAE tech company. This is our team, and there's some people also in the background. We believe in digitization. We believe that the carbon markets deserve a digital solution to provide, to enable really climate finance and to take it to the next level, to where the industry is really heading, and that is making things digital, accurate, and efficient. As we, probably my colleagues have repeatedly highlighted, what we want to do is to get things to become in real time, ingest data, automate data validation, digitize the verification workflows, make the lives of the VVBs easier, and to integrate everything with the standard, with GCC, ultimately to enable really a significant reduction in costs and a significant reduction in time. What I'll do is I will jump into a demo. The demo is split into multiple views. The view of a project proponent, just to give you an overview of what the project proponent does and sees and how they interact with a VVB when applicable. The VVB workflow, what happens when there's a trigger for issuance, and how the interaction happens, how everything is, let's say, centralized in one single spot. But prior to that, I would like perhaps maybe to start by highlighting that whatever we're showing now is applicable to all the projects that, and maybe here Subindo and team can correct me, the digital MRV could be applicable to all the projects that have been registered with GCC, which means that we are open to collaborate on the existing registered projects that could have a digital MRV component, let's say, added on. And so we'll be looking forward to continuing this conversation with the project proponents, with the VVBs as well, and to enable them to work more efficiently, more transparently, and to really bring the real value of a credit that is empowered by a digital MRV. I will share my screen that will show you in a nutshell how the, let's say, view looks like. And I will start with a project proponent view. Let's assume that you should be able to see my screen. Maybe you can confirm.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Perfect. So never mind the numbers for the time being. This is just for a demo purpose. We have taken the example of a project proponent that has, let's say, multiple projects under their belt. It could be projects in the same country. It could be projects in multiple countries. So any project developer could be having one or multiple projects. The project could have one or multiple sites. So it's irrelevant of the number of sites as well. The idea here is that everything will be in one single place. And the projects that you could see could, for example, be able to aggregate all data from the projects, either, as I said, one site or multiple sites. So, and when the project data, let's say, is ingested, multiple things happen. This is what was also highlighted by the colleagues. There's data validation, depending on the location of the project, depending on the quality of the data, depending on the, let's say, environmental conditions. Does this data make sense? Has there been a X number of days in terms of gap of information? So all this input we receive is taken into consideration in an automated fashion. And everything, the relationship between the project proponent and the VVB, when the verification is kickstarted, happens on the platform itself. The projects, of course, all of them have the registration documents all in one place, and the verification documents required to be kickstarted in one place. So the GHG related information and the non-GHG related documents. Documents could be uploaded, documents could be annotated when applicable in the case of verification documents and non-GHG documents. And there is a way for them to be then assigned to the relevant VVB. Let's take an example of a project that is ready to be to mark as ready for verification. This duration could be a few months, but it could be also a few days if needed. So the duration is irrelevant. The project proponent, when ready to proceed into a phase of issuance, can simply mark this, let's say, this period ready for verification. Any missing documents would be uploaded, and all this information related to a specific project that needs to go into a subsequent phase goes to a verification body. The verifier, on the other hand, has the same workflow, give or take, in the sense that they have a list of assignments on their side. They could choose the project that they need to verify, and they go through a sequence of steps all in one place, starting from the data that they receive to document review for all the relevant documents. And again, the documents are split for registration document, verification documents, and non-GHG claims. The data that have been collected from the systems is ingested, validated, and they can directly raise any clarification within the system. Any clarifications that is raised in this platform is automatically then on the spot or in bulk communicated to the project proponent. They can schedule any site audits that could be either remote or in person, and that could be done directly from the platform. They can review all the data that have been aggregated over time. And of course, when they reach the point where they need to finalize the review, they can directly also assign the technical reviewer. And the technical reviewer from the VVV side can then have access on their side to everything that was done on the project. As per the procedure, the then technical reviewer, this is the view of a technical reviewer that needs to continue the work. They finish all the work relevant to the specific project, having access to the full trail of the data gaps, the anomalies. They can then also raise any inquiries that they have with the verifier, the lead verifier of the project. Once that work is done, then everything could be sent to the project proponent that needs to approve the final result prior to the submission to GCC as a standard for the relevant work that needs to be done. So as you could see, this is a one specific place where all the stakeholders could efficiently do their work, starting from and it all starts by the data that is ingested from the project. The type of project could be an on-grid project, it could be an off-grid project, it could be projects, say, of multiple types. For the time being, we are focused with GCC on the sectorial scopes that we are involved with. And the point is we are bringing the type of transparency, accuracy, and the, let's say, efficiencies that were needed, let's say, to really take the execution of a MRV process from being a typical manual process into a digitized process. We're happy to we extend our hand to collaborate with all the stakeholders on this work, and I would like to highlight that this is just the first step towards digitization. We will be continuously working with all the stakeholders on improving the process, ensuring that whatever we build is always going to continue to evolve as the methodologies evolve, as the processes also need to evolve, and as the requirements from all the stakeholders evolve with time. This is in a nutshell. I wanted to keep it short from my side. So Bindu, also because we wanted to...
If I may come in, could you be able to show a little more on, because I think the concern of the all who participate herein is, what do you do with the data? How do you check that the data is authentic, and what all checks do you do in the data? Is it there? Can be shown?
Of course,
the system?
of course. I will take a specific project for an example, and we could then deep dive into what the data means.
Yeah, by the time you do that, Nadine, yes, they have several ways of hooking up onto the field device. It can be through SCADA. If the SCADA is already existing on this project activity, already doing it on behalf of the client to be able to monitor that. Or they can also get the data directly from the inverters. So they have the capability of mapping all the investors to their system and directly pulling the data from therein. So, but they are now tied up with all the major manufacturers of inverters, and so they just type in the string, right, of the serial numbers and the passcodes, and they directly start pulling data the moment it goes live therein. And in the IoT devices also, they can directly map and get the data from there.
Sorry, I'm just taking a sample project that has.
Yeah, you need to also share, right, the scheme.
Yeah,
Sure.
in the meantime, Shubhendu, there is one question, only one question left from Vijay. And there are a few questions left from Rory. Perhaps Rory, they seem to be very long and technical questions. So I would encourage you to write an email to us, then probably we can get back to you on that.
No, I
So-
think
so we-
Rory, we already received the part of your queries as a part of your input on the methodology, which is methodology is a purely a carbon, emission reduction mapping tool, not a hardware, integrity determining tool. But we have it with you. We'll come back on that. And with respect to, there's another call, right? The question you said.
From the Vijay, who will approve onboarding of MRV equipment, maybe verification, verifiers perhaps?
Yes, we will be. So it can be a VBB, existing VBB. It can also be independent certification bodies who do certification of equipment on the ground.
In the meantime, I would also, request you, if you have any questions, please raise your electronic hands. In the meantime, Mohammed Al-Nahi, please go ahead with your explanation.
So the data that we receive from the projects are directly from the systems themselves. We receive the raw data, which is made available for eventually anyone that needs to review the data. The raw data also flags any anomalies, and all these anomalies are made available for the verifier that could inquire about any anomalies. It can basically download this information in form of Excel to do all the job. And subsequently, all the information that will be available will be also, we are also making use of an AI agent in the next phase, where the verifying body can directly talk to the database as well, on top of the ability to be able to download the information and inquire on the information, which is both in raw format and in a normalized format. So everything that you have from the project, when it comes from the raw data to normalized data, everything is ingested by the platform, and then that information is, of course, let's say, flagged for any anomalies, any gaps, and anything that could represent a point of inquiry to the verification body that needs to do their job. This is in a nutshell. I don't know if I answered the question. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's on an overall basis, yes, but it's okay. Today we have some time limitations. We can then go back and actually show that how one data is treated and what all 10 checks you do and what are those, how does it pass, and show the status against each of the checks. That's okay. We can have a separate one. Anyway, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mohammed Al-Nahi. So now I am still thinking of having, although we are very close time, I'm still the floor is open for any questions. I couldn't see any hand as of now. If there are any, I would like to take 2 or 3 quick questions, if possible. If there are electronic hands. I don't see any, so which means.
Can I add one comment here?
Yes, please.
I mean, just
Yeah.
So I just wanted to say, because this was probably, I don't know whether Subhendu covered it or not in his Ascent program, Energy Access Program, Ascent Carbon Program, we call it. This is a program funded by World Bank. It is a $5 billion facility, and with the private sector involvement, it can go up to $15 billion. And this has been implemented for COMESA countries, 24 COMESA countries, Central and East Africa. And we are likely to launch this program soon in Q2 of this year itself. So stay tuned, because then this is going to come live in just a couple of months from now. So just I wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kishore. Thank you, Kishore. I think there is one question from Vijay. It is quite a good question, actually. It says the principle of verification was to include the data based on installed measuring equipment, and second was to have a cross-check based on third-party data or information. So with this system, it will only depend on measurement and does not depend on cross verification. I think I'd like to add something here, and maybe that Shubindu or Kishore will also join. So I think the first check here is that you are onboarding the data provider. So you have a criteria against which first gate, of allowing them to see what is the capability, and then only allowing those providers to provide the services of installing equipment, and then ensuring there is full calibration of data and everything. This is number one. Number two is that at project level, the verifiers, we have some provision, I think, if I remember, in the World Bank's project, is that the first verification probably would be verifier would be looking at how the things are actually functioning, and even if there are some errors here, that would be looked at. And given the fact that the data is coming real time, in context to what used to happen in verification, so it is the past data that is being looked at. So things have already occurred there, and then you don't have a parallel verification, for example, wind speed in case of wind, or solar irradiation in case of solar, and so on and so forth. So I think I understand, this is a very important question, because the Kyoto established the third-party verification is extremely important. And then we are moving into a system where we have to scale up the whole thing. We are talking about 50 to 60 billion tons every year reduction. We're not talking about Kyoto Protocol, which issued 2.5 billion in 25 years. We have to scale up. We have to have new things. We have to use technology. I understand it will take a bit of time in moving in that direction, but I think this is what. But Shubindu, if you want to add a few things here, so.
No, yeah, rightly. As I said, the fact is that we have different validation checkpoints, right? First, we have the system audited, then we have the system provider audited, and finally, what comes out is the data that comes therein. And the third-party data or the cross-referencing data is not only from the weather reports to do a validation on the trends, but it was also with other data points, with other AMAs which are there in the region. So, for example, there is a deployment of 10,000 rooftop solars in a geography. It's not going to happen that each of the rooftops would be separately audited to figure out the capacity. It would be a mass deployment of a certain specific intervention there. Say it's a 100-watt rooftop that would get installed on 10,000s, each under the same weather conditions, each of them pushing data to a central repository. All of them would get compared if they have the same capacity utilization factor or the consumption levels therein. So we know that what is the battery capacity for each of them. We know the maximum output that can be generated. We know what is the past trends of other AMAs in therein, and we know if the trend is mapping with the weather conditions is therein. So there are at least 3-4 already the external reference points against which we can compare when we check in the data. When it comes to on-grid systems, we know that the certification does not happen on the meter readings. It happens on the third-party data, which is the energy bill which comes from the DISCOMs. The trace system therein has a system that they can directly take the bill and sparse the data from these and enter into a database, and the claims would at the end of the day come out of an acceptable deviation between the field data and the data that comes from the grid authorities. This acceptable deviation will be factored into the emission reduction claims, because we want to give the client an ongoing basis of understanding how much might be their claim. The final claims are always validated against external data points like the bill that comes from the DISCOM from an on-grid system, not from an off-grid individual installation basis.
We have last 2 questions. I would like to take them up, and before we kind of have the closing remarks. I think first question coming from Naveen. So he's basically asking, unlike other commodity, carbon credits doesn't have the real-time trading platform, and most trading happens bilaterally or auctions or OTC. How does real-time issuance add value to credits? I think, as I said, we have to scale up. We're talking about a scale of, 50 to 60 gigatons as per the Paris Agreement. That's what the target is. If we do one by one, bilateral, case to case, and do not use technology, do not use smart contracts, do not use real-term trading, I think we're not going to scale up. The world will not be able to scale up. That's why GCC is talking to JP Morgan on their Kinesis program, which is a real-time digitization program, and therefore will ensure that real-time credits probably get in real time, like you have the stock market trading and so on and so forth. So I see Kishore has asked for a floor. Sure.
No, I see one important question coming for Mohammed Alnai. That's why I wanted to say, I think Nadine has asked a question. So maybe for Trace, how is data flagging and reingestion of data managed? Is Trace connected to SCADA or similar system?
I already responded to it.
Yeah, it was responded, Kishore.
Is it is responded?
Yeah, I think there's a question from George, which basically is asking at how will the methodologies work? Basically, would you have, programming on each and every methodology and then try to see how it. Shubhendu, would you like to give a little bit of?
Yeah, I mean, yes, the methodology as it stands at this point in time does not include a DMRV protocol. So we started off with the ones which is more relevant for the ascent market, which is the DRE and the Cookstove one. Cookstove is quite a challenge. It's still ongoing. Maybe we'll close it out. We have now started the next set of methodologies we're looking at, which is with respect to methane abatement projects. So we will have to go methodology by methodology in order to be able to do that. There's a separate program that we have launched on digitization of methodologies. So we should come to a point wherein the client does not need to know everything with respect to carbon. They just need to know how the project is and what is the technicality of the project. Then the methodology would be intelligent enough to be able to guide them on all data requirements and confirmation of each of the acceptability criteria and which equations would be used, which would finally flow to the carbon engine for conversion of raw data to ton of CO2 equivalent. So we have to go methodology by methodology at this point in time, till the time that we cover up almost all the portfolio that we have on projects.
I think, I said last two questions, but Roddy still submitted a lot of questions, but I think,
Yeah, we'll respond to it over mail, yes.
Yeah, we'll respond through email, but I just wanted to say something. I think the main concern is why third-party verification is eliminated and all that stuff. So I think we have multiple tracks, for certain projects, they can go through the traditional verification and traditional process, but there are projects, where they can opt to have, DMRV, and perhaps, you need methodology specific, programming to be done. Not everything can be done in a single day. It will take a bit of time, right? So I think, which means then all the tracks would operate, and then you have a choice to choose whatever you want. But in the longer run, if we have to scale up, this is the direction that seems very, very proper in this scenario. So with this, I would like to thank all of you for your questions. But Kishore,
can I
think
come
I see
in
your
for
hand.
one
Yes,
one
please.
just to Rory. I mean, see, the DMRV is for distributed type of activities. It is not for utility scale, and of course, somebody wants to use the IoT technologies for utility. That's fine, but it's mostly useful for distributed type. The idea is not to miss the checks here. The idea is that the accuracy of the data has to be believed from a calibrated instrument which are sending the information on the real time, and that is we are trying to avoid the bureaucracy. All the checks, as Mohammed Alnai already talked about it, the whole system is checking the anomalies, everything. What a third party or a steering committee or a verifier would have done, manually checking the anomalies, is done by the system. That's what we are trying to achieve. We are trying to achieve the speed, efficiency, and cost reduction. It is not to avoid the third party checks and balances there. It is to simplify for those type of applications which are distributed in nature and which brings a straightforward, accurate data on the platform. So, and of course, validations are anyway done as per the rules. So validation, it's only for the validated and approved PDD for which the verification are happening through DMRV system, or rather issuance are happening through DMRV system. So it's not about that GCC is doing everything. It is doing everything for a simple and straightforward cases for which automatic checks are bringing the integrity into the picture. Sorry.
I need to come in a bit here. Number one is Carbon Engine is not GCC's. Number one, it is a third party which is running this Carbon Engine of transforming raw data into ton of CO2 equivalent claims. Number two, these VBBs are not done away with. We don't have a verifier sitting on each project separately and the project owner having the cost to run a verifications agency's cost. He's sitting on the system, having a view on all projects and all data that comes in and does on an ongoing basis. So number one is there is no doing away with the VBB, but VBBs are not one on one project. They are doing it on a band of projects that we're sitting there in. There is already a VBB sitting in the validation. VBB is not the only way that if it had been that VBB is the only safeguard on the system, then we would have been talking of DMRV at this point in time. And already, and also at the end of the pipeline is GCC who does and goes back. I don't know whether you're conversant in the way that GCC works. When it comes to issuances, there are 7 gateways within GCC that has to be cleared. And at the end of the day, the issuances happen by an external committee which sits outside GCC, which is not a part of GCC, which clears all these issuances. So there are quite a bit of rigor that goes into doing it. So I also saw a comment of yours saying that what if GCC changes its data? What that would be doing away with the integrity of the standard in itself, questioning that standard would change data during issuance. I don't know from where it came from. So I could never have thought of that. This kind of an also thought remains in the carbon domain therein.
Thank you. Mohammed Al-Nahi, please, you asked for the floor.
Yes, I wanted to also highlight one important thing is we're trying also to solve the fragmentation in information and centralizing it in one single place that automatically brings value to all the stakeholders that are involved on the project. On top of course, the function of the platform being able to ingest data directly from the project, communicate with the different stakeholders, raise clarifications, raise corrective actions, and do all the crosses and checks that are needed to ensure that the integrity of the emission reductions are absolutely at the highest level. So some things are to be always considered, that a platform that could ingest data, allow people to communicate, stakeholders to cooperate, really brings down not only the costs, of course, but also the amount of time spent by all stakeholders to enable them to issue more frequently. Now, frequency could be a day, it could be a month, it could be 6 months. That's up to the case itself, but it's not going to be 2 years the same way it's being handled today. That really creates a loss in value in the credit, given that the credit also comes with a vintage to it. That was one comment from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed Al-Nahi. So we have the last thing remaining, which is closing remarks. I would like to invite Mr. Mohammed again to deliver the closing remarks.
From our side, we're really looking forward to contributing with real projects, real world scenarios to really showcase how a platform such as Trace and a digital MRV could add value. And we see the great efforts that are done by all stakeholders. It is a work in evolution. I also want to highlight that. That's a very important point, because you do not see something of this complexity, this scale, very frequently, and it is only the stepping stone towards something that is a bit more inclusive and more global.
Thank you, Mohammed Al-Nahi, for these remarks. I think from my side, I try to be fair. I think we have almost covered almost all the questions. We try to answer to the best of our ability. If there is still, I think, few questions that might remain, particularly from Rory, we'll try to connect over the email and then try to take it forward. Thank you, Jan, for a very positive remark. Thanks a lot. And with this, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank all of you for your time. And I think really we had great participation at one point in time, close to 130 plus, 135 plus participants with us today. A lot of questions, and we tried to do the best we could. Thank you very much. But also, I think there will be a lot of opportunities. I think we're going to present Accent program. I think Shubindu in Singapore, probably, right?
Yeah, we are launching the Ascent program at I4C.
Yeah. I4C in Singapore. Any dates? Probably
21st, 22nd. Yeah.
21st, 22nd. Okay.
21st or 22nd, exactly.
Yeah. So, but then there will be many other opportunities. Definitely, we'll keep on announcing these. So I would ask you or request you to keep track of those. Thank you very much for your participation. The presentations would be sent to you. Our colleagues will look into this and send to each one of you, whosoever has registered in the platform. So thank you. Have a great day. Thanks a lot. Thanks to all the speakers once again, and have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Mohammed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.